I had a couple of big finishes this week, which is fantastic, but now I'm just wandering around the house, much to the amusement of my husband, muttering, I will not start a new project. I will not start a new project. I will not start a new project. I'll let you know how I did when I see you on the other side. Hello and welcome to this episode of Gary Knits, Gary Rides, a Craftivism podcast at the intersection of making things and doing good. My name is Gary. I'm a knitter and a crocheter and occasional designer. And every couple of weeks or so, I jump onto YouTube to show you what I've been working on and to share some ideas that have come across my various feeds on how we can all take our love of crafting and do a little bit of good in the world. I hope you're well. I hope you all had a safe and healthy 4th of July and are enjoying the throes of summer. I am thinking today of the flooding that's going on in the mid-Atlantic and Northeast, and obviously back in my home state of Texas, having gone through those terrible floods that we saw there as well. So thoughts go out to everyone who is suffering through severe weather of whatever type you are faced with. Hope that you and your families are all safe and sound and cool if you can be. It has been a couple weeks. I've been trying to get back on schedule after our vacation. You can find me on social media on Blue Sky as Gary Knits, over on Ravelry as Gary Knits and Rides. And yeah, hop over, drop a note in the Ravelry group. Let us know what you're working on, and love to hear from everyone. Like I said, it's been a couple weeks. We've got a couple of FOs to show this week, as well as a giveaway, and a couple of announcements on some upcoming events, and the whip parade as usual. Not too much. Hopefully it'll go pretty relatively quickly, because I'm trying to get some chores done around the house. Yeah, in terms of the last 2 weeks, it's been fun. We celebrated summer as we have done several times over the past since we've been out here in California. Not every year, but it feels like it happens every 2 or 3 years. And because it is the 50th anniversary of the release of Jaws, the LA Philharmonic did a screening of Jaws at the Hollywood Bowl with the live orchestra doing the soundtrack. We went with some friends. Great time. There's been a lot of Jaws content around the house. It is my husband's one of his favorite movies of all time, and it is a really great movie. I was talking to my dad the other day, and he was like, "Oh, I never saw it." I was like, "It's really great. It's a very, very good movie. It came out when I was a kid, and I just remember I didn't go, but I remember hearing stories from like the older kids about how terrifying it was. I would say it's more suspenseful than terrifying, and just a really great story. We watched a documentary the other night, talking about with Steven Spielberg and how this, made his career, but it could have broken his career because they were way over budget and the shark wasn't working. Check that out. It's I think it's on Hulu. It's called Jaws at 50. A great documentary. Anyway, we saw that. We actually got free tickets to go to another Hollywood Bowl show, which was called Classical Pride, and it was a guy from London, a conductor from London, who has, I guess, produced a similar themed concert in Europe and is bringing it to the States for the first time, sort of highlighting LGBTQ composers. So there was a Tchaikovsky piece, there was a Leonard Bernstein piece, and then there was a choral commission by Taylor Mack, and I forgot the composer's name, but it was a lovely night. I never get tired of going to the Hollywood Bowl and sitting outside in the nice Southern California evenings. Listening to music is always a good time. The other big thing that I've got to do is get back to my knitting groups. So my local library group, got to catch up with those guys, and also with the South Bay Drunken Knitters. We met at our for our monthly meetup at our a wine bar down in Manhattan Beach, or yeah, I guess it's Manhattan Beach. And I'll see them again in a couple weeks because we kind of alternate between there and a coffee bar an evening, and then a morning get together. So that's been fun. I also actually got back on my bike for the first time since the accident last year. I guess not really technically the second time, because when Knit Stars was here filming right after the accident, I kind of jumped on and let them film me riding the bike. But this is the first time that I did a ride, even though it was a relatively short ride, and yeah, it showed that it had been over a year since I've been on the bike. So I'm trying to get out once a week, just to kind of build back up to being able to do some modest, 20-25 mile rides. Nothing like the training I used to do. So that was fun to kind of post vacation get into sort of more of a normal rhythm, and that should be the case for the rest of the summer, I think, with a couple of little work trips, and then a trip to talk about in a second up to Seattle in the next month. It seems like it's a long way away, but it's really only a few weeks away. So that's really what's been going on in terms of life. In terms of craftivism, again, it has been a little hard getting back into the rhythm and trying to come up with things. Was a ton of stuff, as I mentioned last time, that happened during Pride Month, and I've had trouble finding things that are going on. I've mentioned getting together in person with people as a form of craftivism, that joy is an act of resistance, and I will stick to that point. And so I will mention that I think I noted it last time, that this weekend, so the weekend kind of from the 18th through the 20th, Knit Stars is hosting a global meetup around the world, including, I think, a virtual thing. Everything will be linked down below here. No, let's do it over here. Here is a QR code to get to the show notes if you're watching this on something other than a mobile device. But everything I talk about today will be mentioned in the show notes, and I'll link all to the information to the Knit Stars global meetup. So I think there's something like 200 meetups around the world. I was looking at the little map yesterday. I think there's like Australia and South Africa and tons in the US and in Europe. So that's really cool. I am co-hosting one here in the Los Angeles area on Saturday the 19th. We're going to kick off at 11:30 at the Knitting Tree LA, which is my local yarn store and home of the Emotional Support Chicken, which I know many of you are familiar with. So Rachel and I are co-hosting it. We're going to head over to Knitting Tree, kind of hang out there for half an hour, 45 minutes or so, and then around the corner from Knitting Tree, there is a brew pub called Three Weavers Brewing, and they usually have some food trucks there. And so around 12:15 or so, I think they open at noon. We're gonna head over there and hang out for a couple hours. We have some fun stuff planned. We're gonna do a stitch marker progress keeper swap. So everyone, if you are coming, first of all, RSVP to the Evite just so we have a pretty decent head count. But bring an extra stitch marker, and I'll have some extras as well. And we're going to throw them all into a project bag and then take turns drawing out of the hat. We're going to have some raffles, including a pretty big one. Knit Stars is gifting each of the meetups a package that they are just selling for the first time this year. It's called the Wellness Package. I think it's like 4 or 5 of their master classes that cover a bunch of different topics kind of around the wellness, mindfulness theme. And so they're gifting one of those packages to each of the meetups. So we're going to raffle off one of those, in addition to a bunch of stuff that I've pulled out of my prize vault. And then we are going to do a Destash table. You know how I love a Destash. And so we're inviting everyone who is attending to bring up to 3 skeins of yarn. So 3 full skeins with labels. And we're going to put them all out on a table, and then we're going to come up with some way to orderly. I don't want this like Filene's basement kind of rush to the Destash table. So we're going to figure out an orderly system of letting everyone shop the Destash. So if you brought yarn, you're going to get first dibs, and then once everyone who's kind of brought yarn has their chance to shop, then if folks who didn't bring yarn, we're going to give them the opportunity to do that. And then anything that's left over, we're going to find a local either school knitting group or some other group that teaches lessons or something like that, where we can donate any of the leftover yarn. So that should be a really fun afternoon. The weather looks like it's going to be really nice, like 70s, and they have a nice space there at Three Weavers with a bunch of picnic tables. So hopefully it'll be a fun afternoon. So it is not craftivism in the normal sense that we talk about in terms of donations and things like that, but I do think that getting together with community is an important part of what we do. There is one thing that I wanted to bring to everyone's attention. If you follow me on Instagram, you've seen me post about this, but two folks who have been very generous with me are working together and separately to help one of them, and I thought it would be a great thing to mention. So Brooke, who is formerly of Fully Spun, I think. Let me see. Do I have one of her skeins right here. She used to run her Fully Spun, which was her yarn indie dyeing business, and she did these beautifully plied, in addition to other things, but she was mainly, I would say, known for these beautifully plied, long color changing yarns. She got out of the dyeing business probably about a year or so ago, but she was one of the dyers for one of my End Aids crochet alongs. She dyed up the yarn that we used to make Desamore Designs, and I'm going to flake on the name of the pattern, but I will link to it down below. It was kind of a long open cardigan, really pretty. Made one for my sister. But Brooke had dyed the yarn for my knit along. As I mentioned, she got out of the dyeing business. She was looking at starting our consulting business and was kind of raising some funds through GoFundMe for that. And then had the opportunity and got accepted to go to grad school in chemical engineering. And so she is moving from where she has been living in North Carolina to Michigan. And so she's trying to raise some money to help with moving expenses to relocate, to make sure she has housing when she lands in Michigan for grad school this fall. So she has a GoFundMe. I'll link that down below, as well as Cash App and Venmo. But another friend of the pod, Fatima Hines of Disturbing the Fleece, an amazing knitwear designer, is until the 17th, so probably tomorrow or today when you're watching this, until the 17th of July, Fatima is donating 100% of her pattern sales to help Brooke's GoFundMe. So if you have not ever worked on one of Fatima's projects, she was a designer for one of my early End Aids knit-alongs, beautiful cabled cowl and hat set. I will link to that pattern down below as well. But she is the queen of cables. She did a whole Knit Stars masterclass on designing your own cable hats, and she just is a genius with combining cables and yarns, things you think would never work, and she makes them work and look amazing. So go check out her Ravelry library, and 100% of what she sells until the 17th is going to get donated to Brooke. So help out if you can. I do think that these sort of mutual aid type of fundraisers are like an ideal way to give back to folks in the community. I know sometimes I get the feedback from people that like, oh, I'd rather give to a charity, and I don't know. I just feel like if you're able to donate directly to a person, that is an ideal way to give. I guess, you do run the risk that someone's going to run a scam, and you know, I think you also run that risk with charities, big organized charities, and not maybe that they're so much running a scam, but that the overhead and $1 million salaries for executive directors and things like that are not exactly why you're probably donating to them. So it's a mixed bag, and I guess there is a chance that someone does something with the money that is not what they said they're going to do. I still feel like you're helping someone, even if they're buying groceries with something that they said they were going to do something else with. I don't know. Maybe that's just me, but I think these are two folks who have been very generous and helpful with me, and I feel like if we can help give back to them, it's a great thing to do. So that is it for on the Craftivism front. I'm so glad I still have some of Brooke's yarn. I have she did an inclusive pride colorway, and I've been holding on to those, and I think at some point they're going to be socks for me. So go help out Brooke if you can. Let's talk about knitting. I said I had up front, I had a couple of big finishes this week. I have neither of them here to show you, so we're going to have to use some visual aids. They were both kind of deadline knitting, and I had to get them in the mail, or I wanted to get one of them in the mail. One of them was definitely a deadline because it is Tilly the hare. I'm going to put the full picture over and just talk about it. This is Tilly the hare, which is from the Louise Crowther Knitted Animal Friends book. It's the second project I've made from that book, and I talked about last time about how the little colorwork sweater was not my most favorite part of that pattern, but I absolutely love how it all came together. Now, I knew that the ears were not going to stand up like they are in the photo in the book and in the photo that I put up here. I tried to figure out a way to gather it a little bit more at the base and see if that created some structure, but they still flop over. I pinned them up to take the photos, but I still think she's adorable even with floppy ears. The one thing I would say that I was pleased with versus my first project. So the first thing I made was George the dog. Here's a picture of George. And I don't think I stuffed him fully enough, especially the head and the upper part of his body, because his head wanted to flop around a lot. So I was a little more aggressive on stuffing the rabbit's head, and then in attaching it, I kind of worked in concentric circles. So I attached, right at the opening for the body and the head, and then I kind of went around again, kind of going up a row and out a row until it seemed to be more sturdy. After I had pieced the body together and was just at that point, and I think that the head for me on these things is always the hardest part, both doing the embroidery to get the nose and placement of the eyes, attaching the ears and attaching the head. Those are the hardest parts of the construction of these things. But as I was about to attach the head, I just Googled attaching heads to amigurumi animals and things like that, and a couple of things that were suggested that I think maybe I will try next time was to either get like a pool noodle, that kind of foam, or I guess they still make them. I remember when I was a kid, my mom used to have little foam hair rollers, but a piece of foam like that, and cut a little tube, maybe not as big as a hair roller, but cut a tube, and then before you fully close up the body and the head, insert the tube in there, and then close it around there. So it creates a little bit of structure, but it's not something that's like a dowel or something like that could be, problematic if you're giving this to a kid, but it gives it a little bit of structure there. The other suggestion that someone made, which might actually even be better because you could probably, make it exactly the size you wanted, is to crochet a little tube and then stuff that with some of the stuffing, and then stick that down in there, almost like an I-cord, but like you make it a little, I think crochet would be a little more structured, and then put that in the neck and the head on it, and then sew it up around there. So if I, have another one of these knitted animals to make in the future, and I probably will, because, you always have folks who are having kids and grandkids and things like that. I might try something like that. But I was thrilled with the way that it turned out. The little French knickers, which I talked about last time, which looked so big, fit great. The only thing that I, if I was doing it right now, the size that they made the little tail, and you can't see it in the photo, but the dress in the back and the little bloomers underneath have space between buttons for the tail to pop through. And I feel like the tail was, maybe the instructions said to make it like 1.25 inches around the pom-pom. And I think probably more like 2 inches would probably have been a better size. But these are tiny tweaks. Very happy with the way it turned out. And it's very funny because in my Thursday library knitting group, there's a woman who makes a ton of these, and Louise Crowther has another book called like Jungle Friends, which is more like giraffes and lions and things like that. And so she's made a lot of them, and now everyone in our group is sort of like, oh, I want to make one. So maybe we'll become the animal knitting group. So that is Tilly the hare. Thrilled to have it done. It got sent off to its recipient, who is my birthday twin, and she is turning 1 this year, I believe. And yeah, we reconnected with her mom's at a mutual friend's birthday party earlier this year, and I knew they'd had a baby, but I didn't know when she was born, and they said, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's my birthday too. So I felt like I was obligated to make something for my birthday twin. So that was really fun, and I can't wait to see the pictures, and hopefully she'll love it for many years to come. The other thing that I finished were my pair of scrappy socks. So I had been, and I'm going to show this in a minute, but I'd been taking the scraps from my brioche adventure, which was my Pride Pod make-along project. Ongoing, have not finished that yet. But I was using the scraps from that to make a pair of scrappy socks for a friend of mine in New York. Last time I saw her, I said, oh, I'd love to make you some socks. And she did her measurements, and I made a pair of just a basic shorty sock using the Kate Atherley book formulas, heel flap and gusset, just straight out of the book, but made them shorties. And then I thought, well, I don't know, everyone has a different sock that they like in terms of the heels and the toe construction. So I thought I'd make another pair of shorties, because she wears shorty socks, and I would do a shadow wrap heel and a regular squared Kitchener toe, because the Kate Atherley book, she talks about how you can make a grafted toe, but she does a cinched up toe at the end, and I did that on the first pair. So using those scraps and kind of modeling it on Mara Catherine Brine's, this is, oh no, not this How I Roll sock. So she, I think is probably best known for her Rose City roller shorty sock pattern, but she has another one called How I Roll, which is more like a recipe. It has, do this heel, top down, toe up, different ways you can do it. But one of the things that she goes through in that pattern, which is for scrappy socks, is kind of a color sequencing formula to kind of give it that almost random, but it's not random, kind of scrappy look. So I did that. Here is the picture of my scrappy sock. I did not take a picture of the pair, but that's the first one after I wove in the bagajillion ends that the scrappy sock produces. I had mentioned last week, and last time, I appreciate everyone who chimed in the comments about my frustration or noticing that where the color change is happening, it was a little sloppy. I thought it creates this kind of almost looks like a seam, but kind of down the edge or the side of the sock. I think it's kind of it must be on the inside of each of the socks. I guess it depends on where you change the colors. I was doing them not toe up, top down, two at a time, magic loop, and so now I can't even remember. I think they were on one inside and one outside because of the way where the socks changed colors. And you all had several tips on what was going on. That yes, it probably was the combination of trying to do color changes every couple rows and doing it magic loop that kind of created that messy edge. So I'll try it again. I love how they turned out. I think she's gonna love them. They're a little, as I mentioned to her, I said they're a little rough around the edges just because this is my first time trying to do a scrappy sock. But I don't think it's going to affect the fit. I used a shadow wrap heel. As I mentioned, I did a regular kind of squared off grafted toe on those. So I dropped those in the mail as well, and hopefully she'll get them in the next couple of days. And I can't wait to see how she likes them. I had a lot of fun working them, and now I totally get why people love to do shorty socks because they go so fast. So that may become the next pair of socks that I do, even though I have two on the needles now. So we'll talk about upcoming projects here in a second. So that's it in terms of the FOs. In terms of the whips, same ones ongoing. We're getting closer on a couple of them. Let's start with the Brioche Adventure, since that's the one I was just talking about. And here it is. I have made some progress. I said that this was going to kind of go on the back burner, but I needed to get some more yarn to finish up the sock, so I worked through a couple more sections. We are into the pinks and purples and onto the blues here in a minute. Let me go back and see if I can get it. But here is the Brioche Adventure. If you'll recall, we started on orange, although this is the wrong side, but this is started orange to greens to yellows to red to pink and now into purple. And then we go, I think it wraps up with blue and then into turquoise to end it. Here's the right side, although it's pretty reversible. Again, Brioche Adventure, Jonathan Tallow's pattern. The yarn I'm using is the 2024 Pride Pack from Republic of Yarnia that Mary had gifted me last year, and I said I was going to wait till this year to use it for Pride. And yeah, not too much to add to this in terms of the pattern. It is a great, I think, big first time brioche pattern because it's pretty straightforward. The increases and decreases don't have anything to do with the brioche. It's just creating this big parallelogram, and then so you're increasing on one end and decreasing on the other. So you don't have to do any of the fancy brioche increases and decreases. And yeah, it does. I think, you don't have to be as aggressive on your color choices as I do. I think a settler set of colors would make a really beautiful scarf. So this will get wrapped up, in the next month or so. It's very, as I said, it's for me at least, because I've done a decent amount of brioche, and this is pretty straightforward. This is perfect social knitting for me. I was knitting the other day at one of the groups, and they're like, I can't believe you're doing, someone said, I can't believe you can sit here, you can do brioche and chit chat. And I said, I've done several projects. I would not be able to do that with my first or second or third brioche project. I wouldn't be able to do that if, like some of the Jonathan Tallow's hats that have, these kind of interweaving brioche ribs. I wouldn't be able to do that in a group because the concentration to remember how each of those decreases and increases are structured would be too much. But this is pretty, at this point it's pretty much just like ribbing, and I'm also comfortable enough with a basic pattern like this that if I do make a mistake, it's easy enough to drop down a couple rows and fix the thing. So hopefully this will probably be a good project for me to take with me to Flock if it's not done before then, and work on up in Seattle. Um, I should probably mention um, that uh, I talked about it last time. Probably should have mentioned this earlier, but I will be going up to Seattle for Flock this year again. It's a great show. I had a chance to do a little knit night with Nicole of Professor Pearl, and we are going to plan to do another meetup the Friday night before the marketplace opens. So I think classes are going on Friday, but the marketplace isn't open until Saturday morning. So still working out the details, location, but probably kind of 5 to 7, sort of happy hour, and somewhere within a decently short walk from the convention center, since I think a lot of people stay at there's like 4 or 5 hotels right around the convention center, and the partner hotels are right there. So try to keep it within a 10-15 minute walk from the convention center. So if you're going to be at Flock, I'd love to see you. It was really fun last year, and we probably had like 30 people at the peak, just sitting around knitting, meeting new folks, having some drinks, and kind of getting everyone excited for the next day. So if you're going to be in Seattle, definitely come and hang out with us. It'll be fun. So back to the whips, and I realized I also have a giveaway that I forgot to talk about. So before we get to acquisitions, we will do the giveaway, or we'll announce the giveaway. We won't give it away today. So I'll just do this in the order that they're here. So the other project that is ongoing, these last two have a deadline, not till September, so I still feel pretty good that I'm not going to be rushing. I'm just going to continue to work on these things. This is my Zigzag Scarf by Christy Cam. I think a lot of people have done this pattern. It's been around for a while, and I've been sitting on the yarn for it for a couple years at least. I'm using 2 different colorways of Lang Mille Calori Baby. So it's a fingering weight, long color change, color changing yarn with the 2 colors, and you alternate every other row. It gives you this really kind of fun, almost random looking patterning. Because I think the rate of the change of the colors is different for each ball of yarn, so it mixes it up quite a bit. I had to order some extra yarn because I was going to run out, and I got that, so I am now good to go. And looking to try to make this about 5.5, 6 feet long. So because it is fingering weight, it's taken a while, but the pattern is extremely easy to memorize, and so it is something that I can kind of work on in a car, waiting for a concert to begin, on an airplane. That said, as is often the case with me and patterns that are very easy to memorize, I do find myself making mistakes, not infrequently, and having to think back to figure out where I've gotten. But I've gotten much better at sort of identifying the problems and not having to go back several rows. Usually it's just like half a row and I'm like, something's not lining up here. So anyway, Zigzag Scarf, loving how it's turning out. This is for my Missoni loving friend as a surprise for him. And then the other one, which is also a surprise gift, and then we'll get to the selfish knitting, is my Stephen West Marled Magic. Let me talk a little bit about this. I've made, I think last time I showed this. So this is like 8 sections, modular design. And I think the last time I was on this brioche section here with this kind of, it's like a tan, and then I held it with a green mohair. Started here with this mesh, and then did this seed stitch kind of fade section here, and then did the brioche, and then I think the last one I did was this garter stitch section where it was I tried to do kind of a fade, you can see definitely that the orange changes color. So it's sort of kind of a yellowy orange, and I held it with three different oranges. I should have switched a little earlier to this brighter orange because the change from the bright to the really fluorescent at the end is very, very subtle. So these are all, this is being all done with scraps. So I went through my tub of scraps and looked at the different sections and tried to to plan out what I thought would kind of work. This is for a friend of mine in New York who's an artist who makes these amazing kind of freehand quilts. And she was sort of the inspiration for this because even though this is a pattern, it's not freehand at all. Playing with the color in this sort of way is a little bit out of my, comfort zone. I'm a little bit more kind of, get the pattern, get the yarns, and kind of winging it is not usually my vibe. But I'm having a ton of fun with this, and so I got through the mesh and the seed stitch and the brioche, and I was liking how it worked. And then she and I had a conversation because she's also the recipient of the socks. And as I was about to start the second pair, I was like, oh, any color preferences? I wasn't sure at that point that I was going to do the scrappy. And she's like, well, I don't wear a lot of blue and purple. So, and I know she loves orange. And I had planned to incorporate not just this orange panel, but the border was going to be orange, and I was going to kind of highlight orange in another section. But the corresponding section to this one was also had a lot of blues and purples because I wear a lot of blue, and I kind of gravitate to the kind of blues and greens and purples. There's a lot of those scraps in the scrap bin. So that kind of switched my thinking a little bit, and I went back to the drawing board a bit on color selection and tried to figure out a way to do something that was a little, I think having a pop of purple and blue like this is going to be perfectly fine, but trying to shift things a little bit away from the blues and purples versus my original plan. And so the next section, so after the orange section, I started this garter wedge, which is, short rows to create this kind of triangular shape. And I started it with a really bright orange with some hot pink and dark speckles. And then I was matching that up with, I can't remember what I'd paired it with. And I just didn't love how it was transitioning from this mesh where you do the pickup to there. And I pulled a bunch of different colors out, and then had my husband weigh in, and I think he was right that this yellow, which I then held double with, it's a Wandering Flock yarn that I'd used, but is the same color as the mohair in the mesh. And I think it actually also may be the not mohair version of it, may actually also be one of the stripes in the mesh. So it kind of, you pick up these little flecks of color in the yellow. It kind of greened up the yellow a little bit because it's kind of a seafoamy green kind of base with some then fluorescent highlighter yellow kind of sections in it, and then all these little pops of color. So I think it tied it in without being so exact. It kind of caught a little bit of the coloring from the mesh. I think it's a nice bright pop versus some of the darker colors. And then what I'm going to do is, so the next section is another one of these seed stitch sections, kind of like section 2. And what I've done is I've started with the same two colors, so this green and this green-gray variegated. And then rather than transition to blues and purples, this one's going to transition, kind of keep more of the gray, and then I have a green and kind of a, I don't want to say magenta-y, so it's kind of a reddy purple not purple, but more like red to maroon. And then I have a solid color of that, and then into a lighter, actually the same yarn that ends up here at the end. So it's going to kind of be a similar transition, but instead of the blues and purples, it's going to be more into this grays and maroony kind of color. So I'm hoping that it, um, you know, is different enough, but also the same enough that it looks good. I mean, I think that this is a scrappy project, so it's not going to be matchy. I think that I'm liking it so far, even though I know it's probably not everyone's cup of tea. And then the final two sections are going to be the same two colors held together. It's that orange with the bright pink, and it's over there in a bag, and I don't want to reach over and get it, but and then a more neutral with orange and again this sort of magenta-y color speckles. So I think it'll tone down the really bright fluorescent pink and fluorescent orange a bit, but also bring in some of the colors that hopefully are going to end up in the final bit of this seed section. And it's two long skinny wedges that kind of run along the border, and then the border I-cord edging that's going to go around is going to be a bright orange held with an orange mohair. So it'll all be trimmed in orange. I think the orange will tie it all together, and then it'll be more of these little pops of blues and greens and purples. So hopefully it all works out. And I'm hoping to surprise her with this in September when I have to take a work trip to New York, and we'll sit down with her for one of our usual boozy lunch chit chats. But it's a really fun project, and I'm looking forward to at some point making another one. I think I've mentioned before that one of the Stephen West mystery knit-alongs that I scrapped, I saved all the yarn because I liked the colors. I just didn't like how they were working in the MCAL, and pulled some other things together and sort of had it slated to be a Marled Magic. And I really like these modular designs from Stephen West. I have a Vertices Unite that is a kit already kitted up, and I would like to work on that as well. So one of those will maybe I don't think I'll do another Marled Magic this quickly because I want to also do the MCAL this year. But I think Vertices Unite has been on my list to be the next one to do, so maybe I'll do that as well. So that is that, and those are all of the gift knittings. I think I started this year saying like no more gift knitting, and now everything I'm working on is has been a gift for someone. For myself, I'm knitting some socks. I finished one pair. I showed this I think last time, but I'll show it again. This is the Slack Tide by Lindsay Fowler. I'm making it in Stroll Tweed for the main color, and then the heel in just regular Stroll from Knit Picks. And it's mainly a plain vanilla sock, but there is some subtle texturing. You can see these little channels of pearls on the back of the leg and then on the top of the foot. Yeah, it's hard to see, but there they are. So I'm right to the today. In fact, after I finish this, I think I'm going to do the heel flap and gusset, or the heel flap and heel turn, so that I kind of have this ready to do the straightaway on the foot for the meetup. For the meetup this weekend, and just have this. I can just hopefully, even though I'm going to be running raffles and Destash, and I probably won't have much time for it anyway. But if I do, I want something that's pretty straightforward, and I'm certainly not going to want to be working on a heel turn or anything that requires a little more concentration. But I'm enjoying this. I think that the patterning gets lost a little bit in the tweed, but these are going to get a lot of use because it's a blue sock and I wear a ton of blue. So the other thing, I have another pair of socks, but I haven't done any work on them, so I'm not gonna show those. In terms of what's up next, I think so I said I've been muttering no new projects, no new projects, no new projects. I have not started a new project. I'm not going to start a new project until I finish these slat-tied socks. I'm not going to force myself to finish the other pair of socks that I've started. They're cabled, and they're just going to probably take some time. But I am kind of champing at the bit a bit to start some plain vanilla socks, something that is social knitting. I think once I finish with the Brioche Adventure, everything else is probably not going to be super social. Maybe the tail end of this Moral Magic will be, but so I'm feeling the need to either start a new pair of socks, maybe for myself, maybe shorties. I've never made a pair of shorties for myself, or to take one of the sock tubes that I had cranked up if I really just like need a quick fix in terms of a project that I can start and finish in a weekend, basically, to take one of those sock tubes and cut them up and make another pair of socks for myself. So no big projects on the horizon. I will swatch for a blanket. And thank you all in the comments from last episode, Marianne particularly, who gave me some great tips on how to try to adjust or modify the Theo blanket pattern from Tony Lipsy that I'm going to be making as a graduation present to make it a rectangle instead of a square. So once I start swatching, I'm going to try those suggestions and see which one seems to work the best. But I really, really appreciate that as I move forward on those. So speaking of the blanket, I think I mentioned that I'd gotten some yarn to swatch for that from Knit Picks. We're moving into acquisitions now, but before we talk about what I got from Knit Picks beyond that yarn, let's do this giveaway. So I have a skein of yarn, hand spun yarn from the Green Goat Ranch. She gave me this a couple years ago. No, I think flock, maybe the first flock, as a giveaway, and nobody has selected it from the prize pack, so I am going to give it away here. And so it is wool and silk and neps and sparkle, so you can see the sparkle in there. It is super bulky, 2-ply, 56 yards. Probably could make a really fun hat, I think, out of this, or I don't know, 56 yards. I think you probably get a bulky hat out of this, or pair it with something else and use it as a contrast. So if you are interested in some hand-spun, super bulky, sparkly yarn, drop a comment down below and use the word sparkle in your comment, and I will randomly pick a name before I film the next episode, and I will announce the winner in the next episode. So there is your monthly giveaway this month. So as I mentioned, I had ordered some yarn from Knit Picks. It is tweedy. Let's say it's Brava. I think it's Brava tweed. So I think I'm going to swatch with that. I may end up, Plymouth has a tweedy yarn as well, and I think they had a bigger color selection in the colors that I'm looking for, which is kind of neutrals and grays and blues. And so I may end up switching to the Plymouth. I just need to check to see if Knitting Tree carries Plymouth and they can do like a special order drop ship, because that would be great, because then I could support my local yarn store as well, rather than support Knit Picks, whose yarn I like, but they're not my local yarn store. So happened to be buying the yarn to do the swatching with in the middle of the Knit Picks big summer sale, and they had some Felici, which I'm so glad that they brought back, for like 50% off. So even though I have a ton of self-striping sock yarn, I am a member of the Woolens and Nosh self-striping sock club and get yarn faster than I can use it. I'm also a sucker for yarn on sale, and so I got 3 colors of Felici to make some more socks. All very feel very summery. This one may be a little autumnal. So the colorways are, this one is called Bonfire. This one is called Beach Cruiser. That's a very beachy color. And then this one is called Board Shorts, also very summery and beachy. So at some point, those will become socks, or maybe I'll try to mix it up and maybe do like a muscle burrow for Knit the Rainbow or something, a striping one. That could be fun. Who knows? Also got my, I don't think I showed this last time. I may have had it, but I didn't show it. Also got my latest Woolens and Nosh striping club, yarn sock club. This is the June 2025 colorway called Some Summertime. Really pretty. The little fluorescent green mini there. This is on Michelle's Targhee base, so it's 90% superwash Targhee, 10% nylon. And I love getting this every month. I've had to put so Michelle has had some trouble sourcing, I think, particularly the Targhee base, and so she shifted some of her production over to a merino base, and has been doing a bunch of, because of the difficulty, and I think because she was working on advents for the holidays, she put the sock club on pause for the summer, which is great for me because I could take a break. And I think I'm going to have to put it on pause, or I should talk to her to see if I just cancel it or put it on pause, whatever works better for her. Just because I've got so much of her yarn that I can't use fast enough. I'm not like Michael from Piece for Piece Crafting, who somehow gets his yarn and knits it up like in the same month and can do that. I really envy these super fast sock knitters who can get through a pair of socks every month for these yarn clubs. I cannot, at least for the time being. If someone has an idea on how we could add an extra 6 or 12 hours to my week, then maybe I could be as efficient as they are. So I think I have to put it on hold, try to work down some of this stash over the next couple quarters, and then see where we are. But she does such a phenomenal job. It's a shame that I'm not a faster knitter for that. So that is it in terms of acquisitions. Again, if you are in the LA area this weekend, so it's going to be on the 19th of July. If you're wherever you are this weekend and you want to hang out with some yarny friends, go check out the Knit Stars meetups. If you're in the Los Angeles area specifically, Rachel and I would love to see you at our meetup, which is going to be starting at 11:30 on the 19th of July at the Knitting Tree LA, and then heading around the corner to Three Weavers Brewing. So come, and it is totally free, and we are going to be doing some giveaways, yarn destash, stitch marker swap, lots of fun stuff. So we'd love to see you there. Otherwise, I hope you have a great couple of weeks. I will be back in a couple of weeks, and I guess maybe do a flock preview. We'll talk a little bit more. We'll hopefully have some details for the flock meetup at that point, but until that time, have a great couple of weeks. Stay safe, make something beautiful, go hang out and find some community. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks. Bye.